You think you know Tron? Think again.
Hey, who's that guy?
That's Tron. He fights for the users.
The Academy disqualified it from the Oscars for cheating. Disney's own animators refused to work on it and were exiled to a parking lot. A radioactive spill sent an actress to a decontamination team. And the technology that everyone called a disaster? It quietly inspired the entire future of Pixar.
It was very difficult to do in 2D, and that is actually go into the scene.
Today we're exposing 15 hidden truths behind Tron, including a Modesty garment that saved a family film, a Pac-Man Easter egg hidden in plain sight, and the single moment that convinced one animator to build the most successful animation studio in history. 1. The Academy said using a computer was cheating. In one of the most short-sighted decisions in Oscar history, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences refused to nominate Tron for Best Visual Effects. Their reasoning? Computers were cheating. The Academy believed generating imagery with a machine bypassed the craft and skill that visual effects were supposed to reward. They didn't consider it artistry. They considered it an unfair shortcut.
When we finished Tron, we had pushed the technology of these computer companies.
So the film that pioneered digital filmmaking was disqualified from the one category it should have dominated. Here's the irony. Every single visual effects nomination today, every CGI creature, every digital landscape, every photorealistic explosion exists because of the groundwork Tron laid in 1982. The grandfather of modern CGI was penalized for arriving too early. The Academy has since acknowledged the film's historic significance. But in 1982, the future showed up and got sent home. 2. Disney's own animators refused to work on it. Traditional Disney animators weren't just skeptical about Tron, they were actively hostile to it. Many refused outright to work on the film. They believed computers were a direct threat to hand-drawn animation, that the machine would eventually replace them entirely. They called it the end of art.
The modeling of objects was incredibly complicated and difficult.
Director Steven Lisberger found himself essentially exiled from his own studio. Disney management, unwilling to force a confrontation, allowed production to set up in trailers in the Disney parking lot. Not inside the building, not in a proper production space. In the parking lot. Lisberger and his team made one of the most visually ambitious films in Disney history while operating as outcasts from the people who were supposed to support them. The animators who refused to participate, and they spent the next decade watching their fears come true anyway. 3. Only 15 minutes of Tron is actually CG. I ask most people what Tron looks like, and they'll describe a fully computer-generated world. They're mostly wrong. The entire digital aesthetic, the glowing suits, the neon grid lines, the otherworldly light, was created almost entirely by hand. A process called backlit animation. Our artists in Taiwan hand-painted all 75,000 frames of live-action footage one by one on large-format Kodalith sheets to make the costumes glow. The actual computer-generated imagery? About 15 minutes of the finished film. 15 minutes. That's it. The world that audiences perceived as pure digital technology was the product of thousands of hours of painstaking handcrafted work. The most computerized movie of its era was largely built by human hands painting in the dark. And the revolution looked handmade, because it was. 4. Jeff Bridges needed a Modesty garment. The production had a problem nobody anticipated. The original white spandex costumes were engineered to absorb the special lighting and paint effects used during filming. They worked perfectly for that technical purpose. They worked considerably less well when worn by Jeff Bridges in front of a camera. The costume was so form-fitting that Disney executives reviewing early footage determined the film had crossed into territory inappropriate for a family audience. Specifically, certain shots involving Bridges required intervention. The solution was a toga-like garment worn over the suit in several scenes. Problem solved. Movie stays rated PG. Nobody on the costume or effects team had accounted for this particular complication during the design phase. Sometimes the most urgent production problem on a groundbreaking science fiction film has nothing to do with technology. Sometimes it's just spandex. 5. There was a radioactive spill. On set. The real-world NCOM laboratory sequences needed to look credibly high-tech. The production found the perfect location, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California, an active nuclear research facility. During filming, there was a minor radioactive spill near the set. Actress Cindy Morgan, who played Laura and Yori, accidentally walked through a contaminated area without realizing it. Lab officials intervened before she left the building. Her shoes had to be professionally decontaminated by the facility's safety team. The production continued. The scene made the final cut. Not every on-set hazard involves dangerous stunts or explosive pyrotechnics. Sometimes you're shooting a scene in a real nuclear facility and someone steps somewhere they shouldn't. The shoes were presumably handled according to federal regulations. Cindy Morgan kept working. The movie got mad.
I'm warning you. You're entering a big error, Flynn. I'm gonna have to put you on the game grid.
6. Every frame was mapped by hand on graph paper. There was no preview software in 1982, no real-time rendering, no quick way to check if a movement looked right before committing to it. The animators mapped every single movement on graph paper using three-dimensional coordinates. Every arc of a light cycle, every turn, every acceleration, every camera angle. They drew it out by hand, converted those drawings to numerical coordinates, and manually typed the numbers into a computer. And then they waited days to see the result. If a light cycle turned one frame too early, if a single coordinate was off, the entire process started over. Another week of work, another wait. The sequences that feel fast and kinetic on screen were built through a process that was painstakingly, brutally slow. Every second of the grid was earned frame by painful frame, calculated by hand in a medium that barely existed yet. 7. Pac-Man is hidden. On the battle grid, director Steven Lisberger spent his evenings in arcades while developing Tron. The film's entire premise grew out of his obsession with gaming culture. So, when he had the chance, he left a tribute. During the tactical map sequence on the game grid, a small Pac-Man icon was hidden in the landscape. It's there if you're watching for it, invisible if you're not. Lisberger went one step further. The audio team buried the iconic Waka Waka sound effect in the audio mix of that same scene.
Send out every game tank in the grid.
Get there!
A visual Easter egg for the eyes and an audio Easter egg for the ears, layered into the exact same moment. 43 years of viewers have watched that sequence without catching either one. You can't unknow it now. Next time you watch, you'll be scanning for a yellow circle in a world made of light. 8. The entire film was rendered on 2 megabytes of memory. Every digital sequence in Tron, the light cycles, the tanks, the MCP cone, the solar sailor, was rendered on computers with 2 megabytes of RAM and 330 megabytes of storage. A single uncompressed photo taken on a modern smartphone is larger than the entire storage capacity of the machines that built the grid. The animators weren't just working without preview software. They were working on hardware that would struggle to open a modern email attachment. The limitations weren't technical inconveniences. They were the entire creative environment. Every impossibly complex surface, every reflection, every geometric structure was calculated by processors less powerful than a chip inside a contemporary digital watch. They built the future of cinema on hardware that the present would regard as essentially nothing. That's not just impressive. And that's a kind of stubbornness that borders on insane. 9. There's a hidden Mickey in the digital world. Disney animators couldn't resist leaving their mark, even in a film most of them had refused to touch. During the Solar Sailor sequence, a giant hidden Mickey was etched into the digital landscape visible below the characters as they travel across the grid. The camera doesn't linger. It doesn't call attention to itself. It's simply there, waiting. The same artist helping invent the future of filmmaking paused to leave the oldest signature in Disney's visual vocabulary embedded in a world made entirely of light and mathematics. The mouse that started everything, hidden inside the grid that changed everything. It's easy to miss on a first watch. It's impossible to miss once you know where to look. Find the solar sailor scene. Watch the ground below. There he is. 10. The name Tron is an actual programming command. The title wasn't invented to sound futuristic. It has a precise technical meaning that describes exactly what the character does. Tron is a basic programming command. It stands for trace on. Programmers use it to debug code by making visible the otherwise invisible journey a program takes as it executes, tracing the exact path through a system to find what's broken. A security program named Tron, operating inside a computer, tracing the corrupt path of the master control program. The name is a perfect technical description of the character's entire function, hidden inside what appears to be a made-up word. Any programmer who watched the film in 1982 heard the whole premise in the title before the first scene played. Everyone else just thought it sounded cool. It did that too. 11. The identity disc sound is a screaming monkey. That distinctive, unsettling sound of the identity discs slicing through the air? It started in a jungle. Sound designers recorded monkey screams, then ran the audio through a synthesizer and manipulated it until the organic became fully mechanical. The result is something that feels both alien and faintly alive, because underneath all the processing, it is alive, or was. They applied the same technique to the director's pet cat. The animal's low, resonant growl became the foundation for the master control program's threatening, cavernous voice. A household cat became the sound of a villain trying to seize control of the world's computer systems. The best sound design hides its origins completely. Next time you watch that disc battle, you're hearing something that once lived and breathed, transformed into something that never existed. That's the craft. Right there. 12. Had the Stockholder screening dropped Disney's stock price? Before Tron reached audiences, it had to survive Disney's investors. It did not survive well. When the film was screened for stockholders, the reaction was confusion and alarm. The abstract visuals, the neon geometry, the world that looked like nothing anyone had seen before. Investors didn't see a groundbreaking film. They saw an expensive mistake that was going to embarrass the company. Disney's stock price dropped. The people who owned the company were so convinced the weird computer movie was a financial catastrophe that the market responded accordingly. This was happening while the film was still being finished, while the marketing campaign was being assembled, while Leisberger's team was still working out of parking lot trailers. Tron eventually returned $33 million against a $17 million budget. Not a disaster, not a triumph, but enough to survive and enough 13. To matter. In the Grid was filmed in complete darkness. Everything inside the computer world, every grid sequence, every light cycle race, every arena battle, was filmed in total blackness. The actors wore white spandex on a pitch-black set, surrounded by nothing. No digital environment to see. No sense of the world they were supposedly inside. The glowing pathways, the towering structures, the geometric horizon, all of it came later in post-production. Jeff Bridges, Bruce Boxleitner, and the entire cast spent weeks performing in a void. They had to react to dangers they couldn't see, navigate spaces that didn't exist, and convey the awe of an impossible digital world while standing in an empty black room wearing white spandex. The finished film feels immersive and visually overwhelming. The actors built every moment of it while surrounded by absolutely nothing. That's not visual effects work. That's pure performance, manufactured from a blank. 14. Tron directly inspired John Lasseter to build Pixar. A young animator named John Lasseter was working at Disney in 1982. He watched the traditional animators refuse the future. He watched them exile Lisberger to the parking lot. And then he saw the light cycle footage. Lasseter later said the sequence changed everything for him. He suddenly understood that computer animation wasn't a threat to storytelling. It was an expansion of what storytelling could be. He became convinced that photorealistic digital characters were possible and that audiences would accept them completely. He pushed for it at Disney. Disney fired him. He went to Lucasfilm's computer division, which eventually became Pixar. Toy Story, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Wall-E, Up. All of it traces back to a light cycle turning on a dark screen in 1982, and one animator who paid attention when everyone around him looked away. 15. The no-guns rule was about kids with frisbees. Steven Leisberger made one firm creative decision early in development: no firearms inside the grid. His reasoning was deliberate and disarmingly simple. Leisberger was making a film for children who spent their afternoons in arcades. He was thinking about what happened after they left the theater. Gun violence in films gets imitated. He wanted the absolute worst-case outcome of a kid inspired by Tron to be throwing a frisbee at their friend in the backyard. The identity disc became the film's weapon of choice, specifically because of how harmless its real-world equivalent was. A circular disc. A backyard game. The decision also made the combat feel uniquely native to the film's world, like something that could only exist inside a computer. That distinctiveness served the story and the setting. The most thoughtful creative choices are often driven by the simplest human concern. In this case, a director just didn't want kids getting hurt. So which truth about Tron hit you hardest? The Academy calling the father of modern CGI a cheater? Disney exiling its own director to a parking lot? Or John Lasseter watching a light cycle race in 1982 and quietly deciding to build the future of animation? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you've ever caught that Pac-Man cameo on your own, let us know. Subscribe and hit the bell. More classic sci-fi secrets are coming. See you in the next one.